character. I mean, outside of his whole planet eating bit.
Yeah, but I mean, like a lot of the heroes that Marvel used in, I mean, Iron Man and stuff, they weren't A-listers until the MCU made them A-listers.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I
Iron Man was a pretty A-listy guy. I will say that.
No, not like Spider-Man or the X-Men, or Fantastic Four. Like it is a totally different tier of characters, I would argue.
All right. We'll continue this argument after we break for 30 minutes of tech news.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. Everybody ready?
Yep.
Here we go. In 3, 2. Stacey Moores has supported independent tech news directly for 5 years. I'm going to be like Stacey. Become a DTNS member at patreon.com/DTNS. This is the Daily Tech News for Friday, May 3rd, 2019 in Los Angeles. I'm Tom Merritt.
It's Free Comic Book Day weekend. I'm Len Peralta.
And I'm the show's producer, Roger Chang.
Sarah Lane's off today, but we're happy to have Ashley Esqueda, host of Stream Economy, with us. Ashley, welcome back.
Hello, friends.
Good to have you, and congratulations.
Oh, thank you very much.
If you don't know, Ashley is expecting. What are you expecting?
I hope it's a human.
Yeah. Okay, good. Good. I'm with you 100% behind that expectation. We are going to talk about Game of Thrones and the black levels of Game of Thrones. Was it too dark? Why was it even considered dark? Why was it considered too dark? All of that coming up, but let's start with a few tech things you should know. Microsoft launched Azure Blockchain Services, a managed enterprise service that provides for the formation, management, and governance of consortium blockchain networks. So it's just blockchains as a service, but the consortiums can use it. The service integrates with Azure Active Directory and is meant to allow organizations to build apps on top of blockchain technology. Service launches with support for JP Morgan's Quorum ledger. Microsoft also launched an extension for Visual Studio Code to let users create and deploy Ethereum smart contracts to Azure Blockchain Service or a public chain. The Guardian newspaper reported an operating profit of £0.8 million. That's 800,000 pounds. For 2018-2019, it's the first profit for the newspaper since 1998. Back in 2015, the paper had an operating loss of 57 million pounds. That's when editor-in-chief Catherine Viner took over and began a policy of trying innovative things, including a splash screen that any Guardian reader has seen, asking users to contribute money without putting up a paywall to the articles. And it seems to be working. The paper also did cut costs and shifted a lot of revenue to digital. Adobe is testing removing its $10 a month photography plan. That's the cheapest Creative Cloud subscription. It gives users access to Photoshop and Lightroom along with 20 gigabytes of storage. So the test means that some users, when they go to subscribe, aren't seeing that option. They're only seeing the 1 terabyte photography plan, which costs twice as much, $20 a month. Still Photoshop and Lightroom, but with 1 terabyte. Adobe said it has not decided if it will permanently remove that offering. All right, this year's inductees into the Strong Museum of Play's World Video Game Hall of Fame include Colossal Cave Adventure, a classic, Super Mario Kart, about time, Mortal Kombat, who doesn't know Mortal Kombat, and yes, my friends, the last entree, Microsoft Solitaire. Now, for some, like myself, Solitaire may feel a bit like a newcomer, replacing Reversi when Microsoft Windows 3.0 arrived in May 22nd, 1990. But Microsoft intended it as a way to get people used to using a mouse. It survived into every version of Windows through 7, and then expanded into the Microsoft Solitaire collection with lots of different versions of Solitaire in Windows 8 and after. Some people consider that the end of the Solitaire run because it was no longer the same Solitaire, but there is Solitaire in your Windows even today. Ashley, what's your favorite Microsoft Solitaire memory?
Oh, I gotta say, actually, I've played a lot of Microsoft Solitaire in my life. So I appreciate that this has been inducted into the Video Game Hall of Fame. But I will say that I am very upset that Ski Free has been denied year after year.
Waiting.
Someday, Ski Free is going to make it.
Have you started any of those change.org petitions?
I really, honestly, I think I should. I love Ski Free so much. it's obscene. I love ski free. I would die for ski free. In fact,
Now,
I have many times been eaten by that Yeti.
aside from your ski free agenda, which I totally respect, what do you think of the rest of this? I mean, I was actually surprised. I thought Mortal Kombat had already gotten in.
I was shocked about Super Mario Kart.
Yeah, I think that one's
not
newer. That's why I was like, okay, I guess. But World of Warcraft's already in there.
I was gonna say, yeah, it's not that much newer than Mortal Kombat. So SNES, those were around the time Genesis,
like
not terribly different in terms of time frame. So yeah, I haven't played Colossal Cave Adventure, so I can't speak to that game. But yeah, Mario Kart and Mortal Kombat, I was really surprised by that. Maybe this was the year of inducting games that have words in them that use K's instead of C's.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I just found it took until now for Colossal Cave to make it in, because that's one of the seminal PC games that kickstarted an entire genre.
Well, that's the problem with these things, though, is they've only been doing this for a few years, so they couldn't put
so they have to play catch up.
all of them in the first year, right?
Yeah, you got to start playing catch up.
They had to start with the Donkey Kongs and Pongs and all that. So
and Mario Brothers.
Yeah, we're moving into the realm of video games where there's more debate to be had versus the early ones. It was everybody's like, oh yes, no, obviously that's one that has to go in there.
Is it like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame where you have to have the game has had to have been around for a certain amount of time before it can be eligible to be nominated or inducted?
That's
like 25 years for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Right. And do the surviving members of the video game assemble at the Strong Museum and perform together one last time?
Yeah, or maybe they do like the Wizard that's what they should do at the Rock and Roll Museum, or at the Museum of Play. They should have like a Wizard-esque thing where people come, or they have influencers come and they play the old games in competition. That'd be really cool.
So the Strong Museum is in Rochester, New York. Anyone may nominate a game for the Hall of Fame. Final selections are made on the advice of journalists, scholars, and other individuals familiar with the history of video games and their role in society. That's
cool. I'll do one for Dark Castle.
Yeah. And it's only been going since 2015, so it's still early days.
Yeah.
The Verge's Dan Seifert saw a test in Portuguese, which he doesn't speak, of a new Spotify feature called Your Daily Drive. It mixed short episodes of podcasts, in Portuguese in this case, along with personalized music suggestions meant to be played on your commute. Spotify doesn't have any podcast recommendation tools at present, but it has gone on a podcast acquisition spree lately, acquiring Gimlet, Parcast, and Anchor. Spotify told The Verge it's always testing new stuff, but it didn't tell them anything else about this. I have to say, I love this idea of having if I were a Spotify user, having something that knows my taste, both in podcasts and music, create a little playlist for my drive. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, that would be really nice. I do wonder how useful it is for people everywhere except like heavy urban areas.
Well,
because how long is your commute? If you live anywhere but like major metropolitan areas, maybe your commute is not terribly long, and so it's like,
I think commutes are longer than people think, because a lot of times people may work or may live in a small town but work in the next town over,
in the big city. Or
I
consider that to be like people who work in a major metropolitan area. So like Southern California in general would be considered part of that. Like,
well, I'm thinking when I was growing
up, not just
up,
LA.
There were people who lived in Greenville and worked in Highland, which was 20 minutes down the road. Wasn't like super trafficy or built up. It was just like, oh, they work in the next town over.
Right, but 20 minutes is like, what podcast are you listening to?
That's why it says short podcasts. I assume these are like news updates, daily tech headlines, for instance, 5 minutes, BBC News, stuff like that, mixed in as sort of like news updates with your music. But yeah, no, I see where you're going with this. Like, it's going to be a different experience on an hour-long commute than it would be on 20 minutes. Yeah. I like the idea of having music mixed in with my podcast, though. I wish I could do that on my own.
See, now the real MVP is going to be the company that makes this type of feature sync up with your drive time. So it says like, okay, if I sit in my Model 3 and I say I'm going to work, and it says your commute is going to be 1 hour and 10 minutes. Here are some recommended playlists that automatically generate that are just about that time. Like, that would be great. That's
and Spotify works with Waze, so it could potentially you could approve it to talk to each other, and
that to me is like, that's the step I want to see. I mean, this is fine, cool, whatever. But I want it to tell me if I'm commuting somewhere, or if I put something into navigation, and Spotify or whatever other music service can say, hey, we noticed you're driving, your commute time is this amount of time. You're going to Vegas. That's 3.5 hours. Here is a great curation of music and podcasts that maybe you've never heard of, and some that you have heard of, that'll fill that time perfectly. Like, that would be fantastic, because it is so frustrating to me to start listening to a podcast and you don't really realize how long it is. Like, you're not paying attention. And then all of a sudden you're like 20 minutes down the road and you're like, oh, I got to stop my car and like not listen to this anymore. And then you forget all about it. And then 2 days later, you're like, oh, I got to re-listen to this entire podcast.
Especially when it's like hardcore history. So, some 3-hour long podcast.
That's
you're
a
like, where was I?
Podcast, man. It's
Chinese
like, you got to,
what part of
where? And then you're just like, oh my God, I forgot everything about this class. And I feel like I have to start over again.
Yes. So Spotify, please listen to Ashley and make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you.
The Wall Street Journal reports that Verizon is exploring selling Tumblr, though the process is ongoing and may or may not result in a sale. However, Pornhub VP Corey Price told BuzzFeed that his company is extremely interested in acquiring Tumblr. Tumblr, of course, banned porn from its platform late last year. I would assume that Mr. Price would reverse that ban if he were to obtain Tumblr. Verizon sold Flickr to SmugMug a year ago and wrote down $4.6 billion related to its media business last year. So Verizon is not necessarily disassembling its media business, but it's certainly looking to shed the parts it doesn't feel are as valuable.
Oh, those old rotting Oath parts.
Yes, the former Oath, which is now Verizon Media Group.
Terrible.
I
gotta tell you, I think Pornhub would be the best owner out of those three companies. To own Tumblr. I mean, it was a very popular destination for communities that oftentimes had a very difficult time existing on the internet. So a lot of fan service, a lot of shipper communities, a lot of LGBTQ plus communities. And it was a real shame that to me that Verizon really cracked down on all that stuff. I mean, all of the not completely horrible stuff, which there's still horrible stuff over there on Tumblr and everywhere else on the internet. But yeah, I mean, like that was really kind of a place where a lot of misfits could go and find their tribe. You know what I'm saying? And so it kind of fell to the wayside when they started banning stuff like questionable material, which often loops in things like LGBTQ plus, and harms those communities. Like it sucks. It takes away a place for people to enjoy themselves and find people that they can be friends with. Yeah, so I think Pornhub would be a really great steward of the Tumblr brand. That sounds crazy, but I actually think it's a great idea.
I see where you're going. TechCrunch had an interesting article talking about the fact that Pornhub is actually acquiring a lot of leverage in the industry, such that it is driving down salaries, forcing people into taking jobs in arenas that they may not have been comfortable to otherwise. That would be my only hesitation is do we want Pornhub to get it? Or do we want someone else more enlightened with less of a dominance in the industry to get it?
I guess so. I mean, my question to that would be, how many people are working at Tumblr at this point?
How many people are working on Tumblr that would go with the acquisition?
Right.
Yeah.
I can't imagine it would be a ton of people. Mm-hmm. But it is some people. So obviously people will be affected by it in some way.
YouTube announced the first details of its single slate strategy to make originals available free with ads rather than only available to subscribers of the $12 a month YouTube Premium program. So it doesn't mean that all premium programs will become free, but you'll start to see them all available at least in a window. So for instance, free users will see season 1 of Cobra Kai from August 29th to September 11th, with season 2 then following on September 11th and debuting for free with new episodes every week. More free ad-supported premiere dates are supposed to be announced later, and according to YouTube, original content had 2.5 billion views behind the paywall across 50 shows last year.
They're going to have to, sorry, my dogs are
Your dog very much is excited about free YouTube Premium.
We get a lot of, that for sure. They're very angry that the price is very upsetting to them. They hear $12 a month and they're like, no, it's ridiculous. Hey, Leroy Jenkins.
I think the idea here is what YouTube is saying is, you know what gets people to pay for premium? Ad-free, offline listening, and music.
Annoying people with ads.
Those
That's
three
what gets
things.
people to pay.
Nobody's paying for the
stuff.
original content per se.
No.
So they're going to try out windowing. There's still, you can only get all access to all episodes at all the time if you pay, though.
Right. Well, so I host Stream Economy, and this is the thing that we talk about all the time. Like, is the health of the streaming economy. And so for me, like, there was never going to be a world in which YouTube Premium or YouTube Red or whatever it is, that they want to call it, today or yesterday or in the future. There was never a universe in which that was going to be successful in the way that Netflix was, or Hulu, or whatever else. And so, because it's YouTube, and so people think of YouTube as a platform for free stuff. Like they watch video for free on YouTube. And so to get people, and especially a lot of younger people who don't even have jobs, I mean, there's a huge demographic of YouTube users who are under the age of 15. So asking those people to pay $12 a month for an ad-free experience, which they don't care about, asking those, and they wouldn't even be able to if they wanted, was silly. It was always silly. And $12 a month is a ridiculous price to pay for YouTube Premium. And I guarantee you that price is going to come down as soon as Disney Plus launches. And we start seeing, we're already seeing a lot of these smaller SVOD services like Nerdist Alpha shuttered in April. We're seeing DC Universe get rolled into whatever, Time Warner is doing. We're seeing a lot of consolidation, a lot of shuttering, a lot of changes in the streaming industry. And to me, good for YouTube on making these like original series and putting money into original content. Like, I think that's great, especially for creators. But at the end of the day, $12 a month is just not going to fly anymore. Like, especially competing against the $7 a month Disney Plus is going to offer, that gives you access to their entire library, like just about.
Yeah, I mean, YouTube is going to have to do a better job of explaining that this isn't a competitor to Netflix. This is their competitor to Amazon Prime, right? You pay $12 a month and you get a bunch of cool things like music and ad-free, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they've just been very bad at marketing it that way.
Honestly, I would love to see Google really kind of come out swinging on this and be like, we're going to do Google Premium, and you're going to have a private experience on Gmail where we don't track you. If companies really want to start leaning,
I think they just have to give that away. I think they would come into all kinds of criticism if they made you pay for not tracking like that.
Well, I just mean in the sense of, that's a good point, but I just mean in the sense of offering, like, for example, maybe offering
packaging up stuff. Packaging
up Google Drive and stuff for businesses, like, because you have to pay for that. Like, package all of that together. Like, you're all one company. It doesn't make any sense to me to not package all of that. Like, and then also do something that Apple may or may not be doing with with Arcade, right? So it's like you have this one-stop shop subscription that's maybe $20 a month. You get free games every month. You get maybe free apps every month that are more expensive. You get access to, you get an ad-free YouTube experience. You get access to the premium shows that are behind a paywall. You get, Google Music. You get all the stuff. Like, that to me is going to be the thing. People are going to start looking for convenience and subscription as opposed to a la carte. Much as people really wanted that, like 15 years ago, I think we're now realizing, like, yes, we asked for that and we got what we wanted, but it wasn't exactly the future that we thought it would be, which it's never the case. But
now we just want to improve on that, make that manageable.
Well, a lot of people are like, let's go back to a cable model and let's start bundling stuff. And it's like, no. You asked for this.
Not reintroduce the problem.
Yeah, you asked for this. Don't reintroduce the problem.
Let's maintain control, but make it simpler. I think.
Right.
Finally, the Daily Mail reports that Navy recruiter Ben Su of Taiwan fell asleep with his AirPods in his ear, and when he woke up, one was missing. So he tried tracking it, and he could hear it beeping, but the beeping followed him around. He realized he had somehow swallowed one of his AirPods while he was asleep. So trip to the doctor resulted in a laxative, which allowed him to recover the AirPods later. And after washing them and letting it dry, found out it still worked. Battery was even at 41%. He called the experience magical.
Okay. I don't even know where to start. If you look at this this man's picture on this
Daily
story.
Mail article.
He is way too happy about this. He did this on purpose to go viral. I guarantee you this was I bet if I swallow an AirPod and poop it out, and it'll be a big story, and then like that'll be really cool. Like I'll get my 15 minutes or whatever. But this guy is way too happy.
Listen, we have a doctor testifying that it was there. And we have the Daily Mail has a sketchy record on this stuff, so I'm not sure how much I trust them, but I believe that it happened.
Oh, I believe it happened 100%.
I also don't think you're necessarily wrong, possibly.
Who swallows an AirPod while they are asleep? Like
I don't. That's a tough one. That's a tough one. I guess I could see it getting in your mouth. Comes out of your ear. It's on the pillow. You just swallow it. You just randomly
eat things in the middle of the night. You don't wake up when like a spider crawls into your mouth. Like, does this guy just have like some random medical condition where he just eats things while he sleeps? Like, no.
If anyone's randomly swallowed something while they're asleep, please email us feedback.
Please, and tell us the size of the object. I'm very curious about this.
Yes, me too. I dreamed I was eating a marshmallow and my pillow was gone, sort of situation. Yeah. Hey, folks, if you want to get all the tech headlines each day in about 5 minutes, be sure to subscribe to dailytechheadlines.com. Multiple people complained Sunday's episode of Game of Thrones was too dark to see and complained about the cinematography. Well, the cinematographer took a little issue with that. Fabian Wagner told Wired, a lot of the problem is that a lot of people don't know how to tune their TVs properly.
Well, you're watching it wrong.
A lot of people also, unfortunately, watch it on small iPads, which in no way can do justice to a show like that anyway. Game of Thrones is a cinematic show, and therefore you have to watch it like you're at a cinema in a darkened room. If you watch a night scene in a brightly lit room, then that won't help you see the image properly. Now, some other issues that this could be are overcompression from your provider. DirecTV famously compresses its signals and causes artifacts. Your internet connection can cause artifacting as it tries to adjust to the bandwidth, or HBO may have been really congested in your area. That could cause a problem. The app you use is different. Some people reported having problems with the dark level on one app, but when they switched to a different platform, it was better. And as Wagner notes, the size of the file and whether your TV is properly tuned are other things that can affect. I personally thought the episode was dark, but on purpose, because it's called The Long Night. And I didn't have any problem seeing what I was supposed to see, but your mileage may vary. Ashley, what do you think of all this?
So I think a lot of people are really curious as to who's right here. They're like, oh, who's right? Who's right? Everybody's right. So the cinematographer, 100%, most people don't know how to tune their TVs. They have no idea. You just set it to game mode or cinema mode or movie mode, whatever. And then they leave it alone, and they end up having like things like motion smoothing. Blah. They end up having that on. And it's not great. And then on top of that, a lot of people have shaky internet connections. A lot of people have problems like HBO servers getting bombarded at 6:00 when Game of Thrones goes live on Sundays. So all of those things are absolutely correct. He did choose to shoot 3 kind of acts of the show in very different lighting situations. There's a 40-minute mini documentary. I can't believe it's 40 minutes long.
I know, right? But it's really good.
Really good. It's on YouTube. It's on HBO's channel, and it's about how they put together that episode. So once you see it, if you haven't seen it, go watch this like 40-minute documentary. And they talk about it in terms of acts, where they're like, Act 1 was I forget what, a suspense, like a thriller. Mm-hmm. Act 2 was a horror movie, and then Act 3 was an action movie. And so they shot them and lit them very specifically to those things. And so in a thriller, like you don't know what's in the dark, and it's supposed to be scary, and you're not supposed to see anything. And so that absolutely was the case. Like they shot that very purposefully. And for me, I don't have a TV with HDR. So there were a couple of moments where I'm like, I don't know if I'm supposed to be able to see what's happening here. But then there was no moment that was so important to the plot of the episode that I felt like, oh, I can't believe that was so dark. I missed that.
Yeah. And this is going to shine some light, if you will, on a problem that a lot of people don't realize exists, because many people grew up in a world where you had a TV and a cable connection, and that was it. You didn't need to tune your TV.
Hardwired right in.
We not only have tunable TVs with high-level picture control, that are often set to things like motion smoothing, but also we have multiple different ways of getting video, which highlights all these different problems in the way video can be displayed. And why you have a game setting and a sports setting and a movie setting is that different kinds of video require different kinds of things to be emphasized. So CNET David Katzmeyer is for years been my most trusted source for issues like this. He has some tips on CNET. The simple ones are turn off your lights. So he agrees with Wagner on that. Choose the movie or cinema or calibrated setting, depending on your TV. For Game of Thrones, it may not be right for watching sports, but it's right for Game of Thrones. And those modes show the most realistic color with solid contrast and correct shadow detail, though they do mean lower light output, which is why he says you need to turn off your lights. And of course, he says turn off any smoothing effect, any soap opera effect. In LG, it's called True Motion. Samsung, it's called Auto Motion. TCL, it's called Action Smoothing. Sony, it's called Motion Flow. Everybody calls it something different, but it has motion in the name.
So sneaky.
Usually. Yeah. So if you know, he has a lot of other tips if you want to really get in there and adjust brightness and contrast yourself. But he's like, if you don't want to mess with that, probably choosing movie on Samsung or TCL, cinema on LG or Sony, or calibrated on Vizio should help. Yeah.
And honestly, like if you're in the market for a new TV, at this point, future-proof yourself by getting something with HDR, because now we're starting to see a lot of the higher end, sort of more cinematic television shows, and even things like, you know, Netflix, their original series, they're shot with HDR in mind. And so, you know, give yourself the opportunity to be able to watch it the way it was intended. I mean, that's always a good rule of thumb. And you know, and also give yourself the opportunity to watch it the way that it was edited. And that's another thing people don't really know or remember, is that when these shows are edited and color corrected, they are done so on extremely high-end monitors. I mean, they're thousands of dollars, and they have no banding. They are a perfect recreation of what the camera saw. And so a lot of those, you know, I'm sure there's some minor testing like on other devices to see what it looks like, but really at the end of the day, it's up to what the director wants and wants it to look like, and the cinematographer. And so if that is generally the case, then you're going to want to make sure that you have a device that is going to be able to give you as close as possible to what their intended imagery is. So to me, but if you're getting a 4K TV sometime this year, if you're like, finally, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna pull the trigger. Wow, look at this great clearance television that's 4K but doesn't have HDR. Like, don't do that. Spend the extra like $100, $200. Get a TV with HDR. You're gonna future-proof yourself a little bit more in that way. And I regret every day. I have a 70-inch television in my living room. Every day I regret not getting an HDR TV, because I got it right as HDR was rolling out, and there were, you know, HDR 10 and Dolby Vision, and I couldn't decide. And it was at the point where it was only one or the other. There were not TVs that had both. And so I was like, I'll just buy like the biggest TV I can afford. And so I bought this television, and I kick myself all the time because I
had to live with 1080i for a few years for making a similar decision. So
and it's like, because I really wanted to upgrade, and that's like, you know, it's that early adopter problem where it's like, I got in just a little too early. I got too excited about 4K too soon.
Especially with something like a TV that, you know, you're not going to swap it out every year.
No, and I really want to. So there have been some really good deals on some OLEDs, like the LG C8. Yeah. The LG C8, it's like every now and again, Best Buy does like a sick deal on it. And I always want to buy it and just like have it delivered to the house the same day and just not say anything. I just
like,
I don't know what you're talking about. My husband will come home and he'll be like, why do we have a new television? I'm like, I don't know. But I don't know what to do with this 70-inch television. That's like, I'm like,
I can't haul away from Best Buy.
But it's like, I would want to maybe like try to sell it, or like maybe a friend would want it. I don't know.
If you want the perfect fait accompli, you're going to have to give up on selling it.
Yeah. See, it would really have to be, yeah. And I just, oh man, it's so tempting. Like I can't go to a Best Buy anymore. I walk into the television. It's like, I love high-end TVs. Like that's my favorite part of CES. Go look at the TVs.
Yeah. And there's lots of them too. Yeah. Hey, thanks to everybody who participates in our subreddit. You can submit stories and vote on them at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com and facebook.com/groups/dailytechnewsshow. Let's check in with Len Peralta, who has been illustrating the show today. Len, what have you drawn for us today?
You know, one of the favorite things about working on the show is taking pop culture things and mashing them together. And that's exactly what I did with this image. Of course, it's Game of Thrones, the darkness of the image, and two people watching it saying, maybe turn up the brightness. And when they turn up the brightness, they're a little bit shocked to find Sonic the Hedgehog
with human teeth.
With human teeth. It's a little bit on the nose there.
Fix it. They're like,
can
we're gonna
you guys? Yeah, can you believe that they just? Well, do you feel like that's a little bit of a publicity stunt? Because I mean, that backlash has been around for months.
Mm-hmm. No, it entirely is. I agree.
And they're just like, we hear you. And it's like, well, we've been screaming for 3 months. So do you live in a wormhole where you just now heard the screaming? Or is it like that you've heard the screaming and didn't care? Or
to react to.
Yeah, I guess so. It had to hit a certain pitch, just like dog whistles. Like you had to just hit a certain scream pitch and then the Paramount executives actually heard it.
So if folks want to get a look at this or even get a print of it, where do they go, Len?
Well, they can go to patreon.com/Len. That's exactly, if you're a Patreon, you get it at the $5 level automatically right after the show. Or you can just go to my online store, lenperaltastore.com. Finally, I mentioned at the top of the show, Free Comic Book Day this weekend. Tonight, if you're in the Cleveland area, go to Carol and John's Comics at Cam's Corner. I will be drawing live from 10 to 2 in the morning for their midnight event. It's a lot of fun. If you haven't been out there, definitely go out. Come meet me. Come get a free sketch. Come buy my wares for Free Comic Book Day.
Excellent. Ashley Esqueda, a pleasure as always. You mentioned your series. Tell folks where they can find it.
We go live. Well, I feel bad telling you to go and watch my show because we're putting it on hiatus in 2 weeks.
So hurry, watch the next 2 weeks.
Hurry now while you still get, so Stream Economy is on the CNET YouTube channel and we put it up every other Saturday and we've got about close to 40. I think tomorrow's our 39th episode and then 40 will be the last one before we go on hiatus while I deal with this baby situation. It's really fun. We talk about, pop culture news, so movies, TV shows, games, and then we talk about kind of the larger impact on you as a consumer and then we speculate a little bit. So it's a speculation show, but it's certainly not a show where we ignore facts. I like to say, here's what we know, and then we go through what we know, and then I say, okay, so based on all that, here's what I predict this week when we'll see the next Avengers movie down to the month and year. So I'll be interested to see if I'm right in a few years. But yeah, it's really fun. And we do things like explainers. So a lot of people have been searching for Shang-Chi, who's going to be part of, looks like phase 4. So that's a Marvel superhero a lot of people are not familiar with, the master of Kung Fu. So you can go watch an episode about that. And I give you the backstory. And then we talk about casting and who might direct it and all that stuff. We did that back in December. So we've still had a lot of people, like, especially now that Endgame is out, a lot of people searching, like, who is Shang-Chi? Because Kevin Feige's mentioned it a couple of times in interviews. So yeah, it's really, really fun. And we have a good time. I like it.
And that's at youtube.com/CNET TV, right?
Yes. Or I think, is it CNET TV or are we just at CNET? I don't remember anymore.
That one works. And I just assume YouTube.
Yeah, if CNET TV works, that seems fine.
Folks, if you're not a member of DTNS, you're missing out. I just put up an editor's desk episode for the associate producer level and up about why it's good to do nothing sometimes, why it's important to do nothing sometimes, related to the internet. We also have columns from Roger Chang. We have special episodes where we look back at tech news from 5 years ago. There's so much more. You got to go check it out at patreon.com/DTNS. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. We're live Monday through Friday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 20:30 UTC. You can find out more about that at dailytechnewsshow.com/live. Talk to you Monday.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Now, Craigo says, I'm skilled at doing nothing, but are you? Are you as good as you think? We've got YouTube ad nauseum as a possible title, shining some light on GOT. What is dark may never light. I like that one. That one's
That's
good.
nice. Yeah.
Don't reintroduce the problem. That one's good too. I hope it's a human.
Me, honestly, if it was a puppy, I wouldn't mind either. So
you would
either
certainly
way.
make headlines.
You would definitely be a very famous
I'd be
person.
I'd be like that AirPod guy.
You went to the
Yeah.
doctor, got a laxative, and had a puppy.
Let's do what is dark may never light.
That's a good one.
What is dark?
DTNS. And then for the wider Good Day Internet show, I think there was a couple of so you want purple Play-Doh? Okay, that's all there was. I hope it's a human would be a good one. I think for Good Day Internet. Who swallows an AirPod? That's a really good question.
Yeah,
I mean it's not impossible, but it's unlikely.
I'm furious.
No, having looked at one of those, that's something you don't accidentally swallow. You intentionally.
That's the thing, right?
Yeah.
If the AirPod was smaller, right?
Yeah.
If it's just the bud, then I'd be like, yeah, okay,
maybe.
it's in your mouth. You think it's a Skittle or
Like
something.
an M&M.
Right, yeah.
Swallow it down.
But
A pill size.
This piece on the end here.
No, you get out. That's wrong.
I don't really want to take it.
Swallow it on purpose. Swallow it on purpose.
And he got what he wanted.
Yeah. Got us 15 minutes. We talked about him. Look
So,
what we've done. What are we doing?
I was about to say this on the show, but if you go through all that trouble, I almost feel like you've earned it, right?
Absolutely not. Do not dignify these types of stunts with attention.
It's just another Tide Pod waiting to happen. I hope it's a human GDI.
For Good Day Internet, yeah, sure. Now we return you to our regular debate about what the next movie plots of the Marvel Cinematic Universe will be.
Well, what are they doing right now? What's the story?
You mentioned Shang-Chi and the Eternals. They're going to do the Eternals.
Shang-Chi, Eternals,
more Guardians.
Yeah.
There's another Thor,
Shang-Chi's going to be a
No.
Bruce Lee type of film.
Yeah. Shang-Chi, Eternals, Guardians 3,
Black Panther
2, Doctor Strange 2,
Captain Marvel 2.
That hasn't been confirmed in Phase 4, but I assume it will be I assume it will be part. They have on Stream Economy literally this week. I talk about all of the announced release dates for untitled Marvel movies, which they have had for a year at least at this point. So there's 8, and so I rattle off 7 of them, including Captain Marvel 2, and then I'm like, okay, so this 8th movie could be an Adam Warlock movie. If they so chose, they could reboot the Fantastic Four if it's one of the later, like 2022, like July 2022 seems like a good date for X-Men. They could also.
You forgot Spider-Man: Far From Home.
Oh, right, of course.
Well, that's not an unannounced title, so that's not part of the.
It is part of Phase 4, no? Yes,
it is part. No, Kevin Feige has said that. Spider-Man Far From Home technically is the end of Phase 3.
Phase 3. Yeah.
Okay.
And then there's 8 movies that have been unannounced. So I have a feeling in August we'll get Kev Feige to talk about which of those movies go in where, like which release windows, because they already have the release dates because they have to reserve it.
Yeah.
So, and they have them reserved out until Disney has movies reserved out until February of 2023. And the last movie that they have, I think, on their slate is either July or November of 2022 for Marvel.
Yeah, Hemsworth signed a multi-movie contract in 2017 with Marvel, points out Beatmaster. But I guess that could just mean Guardians, right?
They all get, the standard is 6. They get 3 of their own. The option is they're signed on for 3 individual movies, like where they're the hero, and then 3 cameos. So I know that Sebastian Stan actually had a little bit of a different deal where he actually signed on for 9 movies.
Wow.
So because he was such an integral part of the Avengers and Captain America, that became a thing. So they signed him on for 9, but I know that right now, without spoilers, without giving anything away in Endgame, Thor is in a really interesting place, and they have they have some ideas on a Thor 4, and there's interest in all parties coming back for it.
Right. So
But
it's
there
not.
are other ways that they could utilize him in the Marvel Cinematic Universe that would be sort of like Thor Ragnarok, but
Mhm.
flipped.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it would be him in a movie with other Avengers.
Yeah. Well,
Like
you
it's a
forgot
buddy
about
Basically,
Black Widow too.
What I was
right.
thinking of.
That's the 7th movie. Is the standalone Black Widow movie.
Black Widow.
Hemsworth has said he wants to come back, and Waititi has said he would be cool doing something. But I guess nothing is.
There's nothing
solid as the
officially in
other ones we
development. There's
talked
no
about.
contract, and it would be a whole new contract negotiation. I think with Chris Hemsworth, who is now a stupidly bankable movie star, so really expensive. As opposed to, I was reading a thing where I saw, I think like a couple of them got like just $500,000 for like their first MCU outing. It's like insane.
Wow.
So the ones we're sure of are Black Widow, The Eternals, Black Panther, Doctor Strange, Shang-Chi, Guardians. Am I missing any?
Hold on. It's Shang-Chi, Eternals, Guardians 3, Doctor Strange 2, Black Panther 2, Black Widow, and I assume Captain Marvel 2. And then there's an eighth movie that has been unannounced as of now.
So that other movie is
on
the
the
one
release slate.
Could be a Thor, could be Blade,
Could be
Ant-Man.
Adam Warlock,
Blade.
could be a Deadpool movie. Who knows?
Well, I think Adam Warlock's going to end up possibly in the next Guardians film because that's.
I think maybe, yeah.
That's how
I don't think they should or would put Deadpool in the MCU proper. I think it would be smarter to keep him out, because the way in the Deadpool movies, they've sort of mocked the X-Men franchise. Feels like they could now do that to the
Avengers
MCU,
and MCU. Yeah.
And keep it outside.
It
would be quasi part of,
and it would be a way for them to keep the irreverent rated R rated R nature of the movie without
so MCU adjacent.
Yeah.
Right.
But maybe an X-Men reboot or something along those lines. Like we'll see.
Yeah, I'm really curious what they do.
I mean,
that eighth movie is certainly up for debate, and I don't. And it's July 2022, I think, or November. So I think it's July.
Yeah.
So to me, I would argue that it's potentially a third Spider-Man movie, and then but it does that count? Like it's a third Spider-Man movie, and then we get. So I argue in Stream Economy tomorrow that May 2023 will be the next Avengers movie. So because it took 4 years from Iron Man to Avengers, and it's 2019 now.
If you watch some of the MCU movies, you can kind of sense that they're up until about the point when the Russos came on board, there was a little bit, they were still trying to figure things out. And it's interesting because once the Russos came on board, they started really, that was when they started to kill it. I mean,
well, I think that, and also Marcus and McFeely, like a lot of people don't really they discount them a lot. The other two writers on Endgame and Infinity War. I mean, those guys
they wrote the story.
Yeah, like
right?
they wrote
people forget that. You're right.
Yeah, like they are the gatekeepers of the story, and
they
so
wrote what? First Avenger, Captain America, right?
They wrote a lot. They've done a lot.
Yeah,
that's interesting. They did First Avenger.
Because I just watched that last night.
Yeah, did you watch the special features on that, Tom?
They wrote all 3 Captain America movies.
Yeah, that's what it.
Infinity War, Endgame. They created Agent Carter. They did Thor, the Dark World. But yeah, they are.
I think it's an unfair rap. It's just not as good as the other.
Like they are also a very large part of, figuring out that those story beats. So across movies, and also, I mean, Disney and Marvel have done a really good job at a certain point. They started. And I don't know who suggested this, whose idea it was, but they started saying we need to start including the directors of the movies that we haven't filmed yet in our meetings for movies that are in active production so that they know where we're going. And apparently they had, I thought this was super interesting. So when they were filming Endgame, and or when they were filming Infinity War and Endgame, they did not know what was going on in Thor Ragnarok because that was filming
At the
Mhm.
same time.
at the same time. And so Taika brought footage and was like, here's what we're doing
Okay.
with
Yeah.
Thor in that movie. Cause a lot of people are like, oh yeah, like in Endgame, like Thor's like, so it's a continuation of his character in Ragnarok. And it's like, he's lighter hearted and like
Mhm.
whatever, but it's like, they had to know that. Like they didn't
Mhm.
really, they were like, we knew that it was going kind of in a more lighter direction, but we didn't really know. And then they came and showed them what they were making. So there's been a lot more openness between productions that I think DC has never gotten the chance to do that because it's been so volatile and
Mhm.
there's not a lot of stability happening.
Here's what I was thinking. I think that this is a nice break for the MCU, obviously, but they're still going to be moving forward with the new phase.
Yeah.
But I think that this is an opportunity for DC, because Disney Plus is coming out with, everything blazing at Netflix. Do you think it's a good idea for Disney, I'm sorry, or Netflix to approach a DC since they have their own streaming service and maybe bring them into the fold, into the Netflix fold?
They'll never do that.
Warner
No,
won't
no.
do it.
Time
They won't
Warner,
do
Time Warner owns
everybody
them, and
wants-
Time Warner considers Netflix the enemy.
Everybody
Yeah.
wants their own stuff in their
Netflix.
own service now.
And-
That's a shame because I think that I don't know.
You know
Well,
what? I don't
well-
think it is. Disney Plus isn't even going to take down Netflix.
No.
I think people overestimate the capacity for people to have multiple streaming services. The problem is there are too many to choose from right now.
Cost.
But when
It's
it comes
total
down
cost.
to it, people are going to go, oh, I can do these 4 or 5 for
Mhm.
less than my cable. Great. Then I'm in. I think what's going to suffer are the streaming services like PlayStation Vue, Sling TV. We're going to see a big shakeout in those.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like
Well,
I have, well, it's too expensive. And so it's because it's starting to go, they all are increasing their prices.
Yes.
And it's too much because people are going, okay, well, between that, my HBO subscription, my my Disney Plus, my Netflix, my Hulu, whatever, it's too expensive. And so they start cutting things out. Like we have Philo, which is owned by Viacom, and it's like $16 a month, and we get the channels we get all the Viacom channels. So we get like, Comedy Central, and which are actually harder to find on a lot of the
They're not
streaming-
available on a lot of these platforms right now because Viacom's trying to regain rights for
Right.
streaming over their stuff.
But the thing is like we used to have PlayStation View, and I'm like, are we watching any of this? Like, no, we're
Right.
not. We're really not. And the only thing that I miss is we don't have FX. It's like the only one. But when Disney Plus comes out later this year, guess what I'll have? FX.
Nah,
So
FX is going to Hulu.
I mean, but if they do a bundle, which
But-
I'm sure they will,
They will. Yeah.
I'll have
Yeah.
FX. So
Yeah.
it's fine. Like I don't like. I'm just like I'll watch all the shows that I'm missing on FX on Disney Plus. Like I'm not even worried about it.
Only
And
thing I'm missing would be AMC.
AMC's on Philo. I
Where
know
you
that.
can- yeah. What we're going to have to do though is continue this conversation audio only. Thanks video folks for watching.
Thanks,
Audio
guys.
folks, stick around. There's more to come. Like where to get AM.